Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm Seth Udinsky. The 20th century is defined by two catastrophic world wars. Now, while the second of these left an undeniable mark on global civilization, the first was also pretty catastrophic. In the United States, the American legacy of the Great War is intertwined with the legacy of the man who led the nation during its involvement in this war. Now, he's a complicated fellow, respected by some and berated by others, the 28th President of the United States and the man at the head of the nation during World War I, Democratic President Woodrow Wilson. Now, Wilson's origin story is nothing if not complex. He was born in 1856 in Virginia, the son of a Presbyterian pastor. Wilson's father was a veteran of the Civil War, but for the Confederate side. Now, this makes Wilson, in the annals of American history, the first sitting president with such a personal, overt family tie to the Confederacy. As president, he would enact certain laws in support of segregation, showing a questionable mark on his moral code and whether the ideals of the Confederacy ever really left him. Now, he would attend Princeton University, where he would eventually become the institution's president in 1902. Now, he was in many ways the Democrat mirror of Teddy Roosevelt in his personal leadership. Wilson's victory in the 1912 election, some historians argue, is partially due to Roosevelt, who chose to run for a third time after he had left office in 1909. With Republicans split between Roosevelt and the incumbent William Howard Taft, Wilson won the Democratic ticket. Not long after his victory, several tiny nations in Eastern Europe got into a little bit of a tiff that, due to the interconnection of the alliances in Europe, led to the outbreak of the Great War in 1914, and of course we know it as World War I. While the war cast a constant shadow over Wilson's presidency back at home, he was able to accomplish some notable achievements, including the enactment of child protection laws in the workforce and the institution of an 8-hour workday. Now, of course, he was also notorious for instituting a resegregation of certain political offices that had been opened to black politicians during the generations following the Civil War. Now, his most famous act came in his second term when he, under the slogan to, quote, "make the world safe for democracy," entered the United States into World War I in 1917. The American entrance gave the Allied forces the firepower they needed to defeat the Central Alliance in 1918. Now, in a very controversial effort to sustain world peace after the war, Wilson helped create the Treaty of Versailles and with it the League of Nations. Now, the League, as history tells us, did very little to actually prevent another more serious war. Wilson lived his final years in deteriorating health after he left office in 1921 before his death in 1924. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History.